Mr. Wolfgang Bohm. Wolfgang is a member of and a secretary to the Common Content Project, which seeks to harmonize the education of professional accountants internationally. Participating countries include France, Germany, Ireland, Italy, the Netherlands, and the UK. Wolfgang is also the Director of Assurance Standards and International Affairs at IDW, and is a technical advisor on the International Auditing and Assurance Standards Board, and was a former technical advisor on the Education Standards Board. Welcome. Our second panelist is Edward Kiesweather. Edward is the Group Chief Executive of Exemplar Forbes Equity Holdings, a global financial services company. He was previously the Deputy Commissioner at the South African Revenue Service and a member of the South African National Treasury Tax Revenue Committee. He has gained broad experience in the executive roles through more than 15 years in the energy sector, 7 years as an academic, and 14 years as in the financial services sector, and has a track record as a turnaround specialist. Edward is our Deputy Chair for our Education Standards Board. Welcome. Our third panelist is Dr. Adrian Pullum. Adrian is an Education and Membership Director at the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, CIFA, leading on professional training and development to ensure public money is effectively and efficiently managed. He is also a technical advisor on the Education Standards Board and a member of the European Federation of Accountants Qualification and Market Access Working Party. Welcome, Adrian. And finally, we have Dr. Jerry Trapanel. Jerry is a special advisor to the Association to Advance Collegiate Schools of Business, to the president and CEO of that organization. He formerly served as the AACSB's Executive Vice President and Chief Accreditation Officer. He's held academic positions, including Business School Dean, Accounting Program Director, and Professor at Clemson University, and Accounting Faculty Member at Louisiana State University, Baton Rouge. Jerry has his PhD from Georgia and BSc and MSc from Clemson. Welcome to our panelists. The International Education Standards Board has recently concluded its work to revise and redraft its 8 international accounting standards. These revised standards continue to be aimed primarily at IFAC member bodies, and there are 4 important characteristics that I'd like to bring out on these revised standards. Although the education standards are aimed primarily at the IFAC member bodies, they also have implications for universities, employers, and other stakeholders who play a part in the design, development, and assessment of education programs for accountants. The education standards are intended to advance the accountancy profession by establishing benchmarks for the minimum learning requirements of qualified professional accountants, including education, practical experience, and continuing professional development. The education standards prescribe principles in learning and development for professional accountants that IFAC member bodies are expected to implement in their programs of education, professional accounting education. The third characteristic is coverage. The education standards are aimed at developing accounting education policy and affect professional accounting education programs used in education and the development of aspiring professional accountants. In fulfilling its mission of promoting quality and consistency in professional accounting education around the globe, the Education Standards Board has developed the first 6 standards to cover initial professional development, which eventually leads to potentially qualification. These 6 standards cover 4 fundamental areas in the education and development of the professional accountant. The first area is the entry requirements to a professional accounting education program. The second is the content of professional accounting education. The third is practical experience. And the fourth is assessment. The 2 other standards have been developed to cover continuing professional development. In other words, post-qualification. They cover areas of lifelong learning and the specialization of an engagement partner. Here are the 8 titles of our newly revised education standards. As I mentioned, the first 6 are dedicated to initial professional development. The first is entry requirements to professional accounting education programs. IES 2 touches technical competence. IES 3 covers professional skills. IES 4, professional values, ethics, and attitudes. IES 5, practical experience. And IES 6, assessment of professional competence. The last 2 standards touch upon the professional development, the titles, continuing professional development, and the last standard, which was actually approved at our October meeting 1 week ago, professional competence for engagement partners responsible for audits of financial statements. The newly revised IESs for initial professional development are expected to have an impact on professional accounting education programs, which are designed to support aspiring professional accountants to develop an appropriate professional competence by the end of IPD. Several of these newly revised IESs identify competence areas and learning outcomes required to develop professional competence of the professional accountant. The learning outcomes establish the content and the depth of knowledge, understanding, and application required for each of the specific competence areas. In addition, IFAC member bodies are also required to establish appropriate assessment activities to measure the achievement of technical competence, professional skills, professional values, ethics, and attitudes of aspiring professional accountants. Examples of assessment activities which can be used include examinations, case studies, work-based simulations, or other group exercises and evaluation of prior learning. The standards also require the IFAC member bodies to review and update professional accounting education programs on a regular basis, which reflects the rapidly changing and complex environment which the professional accountants operate. A typical review cycle may be 3 to 5 years, but it may be appropriate to undertake a more frequent review, for example, to take into account of changes in legislation, regulation, standards relevant to professional accountants.